RPGs are some of my favorite games out there, because more than just delivering a fantastic and addictive gameplay, they also make up a full experience with great music, a good story, and a memorable cast of characters. Honestly, if your game has a very likable party, there is a good chance I'll enjoy the entire game because of it. Unless you're Tales of Arise.
Actually, it's very rare for an RPG to screw up something like a party. I think that at the bare minimum, there's always gonna be that one character you love no matter what. But at the same time, there's also a chance that you will find someone who makes you wonder, why do they exist? What do they bring to the table? Why are they so useless? And because of that, I wanted to make a video about the JRPG characters that I personally think are the worst I've ever seen.
I know, I don't need to repeat this every single time, but honestly, you'll be surprised at the sort of comments I get sometimes, but still, this video is 100% my own personal experiences and opinions. The characters that you will see on this video made it because 1. They are useless in gameplay, 2. They matter nothing in the story, 3. Have no dynamics with the other party members, or 4. All of the above. Is that clear enough, or do I need to make myself even more clear? Okay, I think that's clear enough. Let's begin.
When I asked for ideas for this video, many people naturally came to me with a lot of Fire Emblem character suggestions. I wonder why. Many of them, of course, were wrong. Like, are you seriously implying Hilda is an awful unit? Are you insane? Others made a bit more sense, like Vander, Ogier, Carla, and so on. But see, here's the thing. In Fire Emblem, almost any unit can become useful with enough time and investment. I once saw a dedicated person build a very strong Sophia. That's quite an achievement! I personally made Nino one of my strongest units in Blazing Blade because she's such a great character. The point is, while the existence of these characters is questionable, at the very least they're all optional for the most part. Wanna challenge yourself? Use them! Want to ignore them? That's totally valid. However, there is one particular unit that doesn't give you that luxury. He's a guy you all know so well, and for all of us, he's our boy, Roy. I'll be frank with you, Fire Emblem The Binding Blade is my second least favorite game in the franchise, only beaten by you know who. And one of the main culprits of that is Roy himself. But why? Is he not relevant in the story? Well, no, he's the protagonist. So, is he a boring character? I mean, I wanna say that yes, even though he has some supports that show a deeper side of him, he's still very boring and generic to my liking. The only reason as to why I don't hate him is because of that melee childhood bias. So what is it then? Well, Roy is without a doubt the worst main character in Fire Emblem combat-wise. He is such a terrible unit for most of the game that he single-handedly made my experience miserable. Where do I begin? Roy starts out as a weak unit, his bases are very pitiful. This is kinda offset by his decent growths, but most of the time he will be racking up points in HP and luck, with the latter being arguably the least useful stat in all of Fire Emblem. Even if you manage to take Roy all the way to level 20, he will be a mediocre unit at best. Having access to the rapier seems good on paper, but his attack stat will ensure that he will still struggle to kill cavaliers and armored units. Made even worse by the fact that these units carry lances most of the time, giving Roy a weapon disadvantage. And can it get even worse? Sure, the rapier can only be used 25 times before it breaks, and there's only 2 of them in the whole game. But it doesn't stop there. His stat of 5 movement is also a hindrance, as he won't be able to travel far each turn. And since every chapter has a seize objective, Roy has to be on the throne to move on to the next battle. So for me, most chapters in Binding Blade went like, okay, we need to babysit Roy, and once everything was cleared out, I had to take him to the throne ASAP, either with a flyer or a cavalier just to get a move on. And you know what the funniest part is? When Roy promotes, he becomes a great unit! The Great Lord class gives him much needed stat boosts and level caps, as well as giving him access to the Binding Blade, which is tremendously powerful. High attack, accuracy, critical hit rate, low weight, and can attack from a distance. It's so damn cool! When you get to this point, Roy actually starts to contribute to the army. Too bad that after that you only have like 4 chapters left. Actually, only 1 chapter if you do not meet the requirements for the best ending. By the time Roy promotes, it's a little too late. it sucks because I wish I could like Roy more. I'm totally fine with him in any other media he's been in, but his performance as a unit is so awful it made my Binding Blade experience one of the worst I've had in Fire Emblem. Maybe if he had promoted earlier, that would have been a different story. But alas, that is not the case. Hopefully, if we ever get a remake in the future, it'll give Roy a much needed buff. Kinda like how he went from being a low tier character to one of the best in Smash Bros. Yeah, imagine that. Final Fantasy XII. This is one of those games I look back at and say, oh yeah, I did play that, didn't I? Yeah, I'm sorry, I really don't remember anything about this game. It's one of the most forgettable JRPGs I have completed. If you ask me what I remember about it, I will say, the story is literally Star Wars, Balthier is one of the coolest characters ever created, and Frank got me acting unwise. Sadly, even though I completed the game, I didn't connect a lot with it. I don't remember the events that happened in the story. I can't even tell you the name of the main antagonist. I thought the gameplay was just alright. I cannot even recall a single song in this game, and aside from the aforementioned Balthier and Fran, I didn't really care for the main characters. But here's the thing, even if this party was so forgettable for me, there was one character specifically that made me say, why are you here? Penelo. See, I'm not gonna criticize her from a gameplay standpoint. Due to FF12 having a job system, I know that you can make all characters useful. Sadly, I gave Penelo some really bad classes that I couldn't swap later, so she was kinda terrible for me the whole way through. But as a character and what she matters in the story, what is her purpose? See, even if I didn't care much for these characters, I can at least tell you what their purpose is. Bon is the main character, Ash is the princess of Dalmasca who wants to avenge her kingdom, Bosch is a disgraced knight who will support Ash all the way. Both Thea and Fran are partners in crime, and Penelo, she's literally just there. I mean, you can bring up the argument that she's supposed to give the player the perspective of a civilian on a large-scale political conflict. But that's exactly what Bon is supposed to do, and I don't even care about Bon! As for her as a character, damn, I can't remember a single line she said in the whole game. I'm just gonna shoot in the dark and try to guess her personality. She is Bon's childhood friend who really cares about him and acts as a contrast to his brash and hot-headed personality. Did I get that right? I don't know, but I bet I did. I don't wanna sound too harsh, but sadly, Penelo is a character that gameplay-wise contributed nothing because I made her bad by pure accident, and narratively amounts to nothing. I think it's a miracle I was even able to remember her existence for this video. Xenoblade Chronicles Charla. I mean, was there any doubt about this? Well, maybe. It was a close call between Charla and Tora, but in the end our medic won by a hair. See, you can argue that Tora is an annoying character, a creep, and is responsible for the worst chapter in Xenoblade history, but at least nobody can deny the powerhouse he can be as a driver thanks to Poppy. Whether you like it or not, Tora is an amazing unit you should invest into if you want to overcome all the challenges Xenoblade 2 has to offer, especially for the post-game stuff. Charla unfortunately doesn't have that luxury. She is, without a doubt, the worst party member not just in Xenoblade 1, but in the whole franchise. In case you haven't played this masterpiece yet, let me give you some context. Charla is a doctor who heals her allies by shooting them with a rifle. Sounds cool, right? Well, yeah, it is! But the more arts Charla uses, the more her rifle will overheat, and you must waste time to let it cool off. On paper, Charla should be an indispensable party member, and for a while, she is. And that is until Donban shows up and Charla's relevance starts to dwindle. Oh, but wait, Donban is a tank that dodges, then healing should still come in handy, right? Sure, but not too long after that you recruit Ricky, who can heal, debuff the enemy, apply status effects, and can potentially deal a lot of damage. This little furball who has so much sex outclasses Charla in every single aspect, and then does more. Oh, but wait, Charla can still buff the party, maybe she still has a niche? Well, ha. That's what Melia probably said, as she joins earlier than Ricky, and in the hands of a skilled player can become devastating, offering great support and big damage output. Charla unfortunately doesn't offer anything past her introduction. And I can kinda say the same about her in the story, she's literally just there. Once you finish her initial arc of finding her younger brother, who is despised by almost every single Xenoblade fan, Charlotte doesn't do much of work. I mean, she heals Melia when she was about to die, sure, and then there's her plot involving her ex-lover Gadolt, which is actually kinda cool, but is completely overshadowed by everything else that happens on the mechanics core. Oh, my favorite part is when Charlotte tells Melia that she is on her side regarding her feelings towards Shulk, and when certain other character reappears, Melia is just left to suffer constant tragedies the rest of the game while Charlotte is just there. At the bare minimum, she does have some nice chemistry with Ryan, and her design is very damn good. I mean, in general, Charlotte is a nice person and all of that, so I can see why she has her fans. But unfortunately, she is the most useless party member in all of the Sansa saga, and debatably the least important character in all of the main stories.
Okay, so normally for these videos I like to make 5 entries as well as some honorable mentions as I go along. But funny enough, I couldn't come up with 5 playable characters that were so awful they left an impression on me. So for this video specifically, I'm gonna make the 4th entry the funniest submissions that my friends made for this video. Are we good? Then let's continue!
Starting off, we have the Prince of Canuck from Dragon Quest II. Now, I never played this game, but the story behind this character was so hilarious I had to bring it up. From a gameplay standpoint, my friend Dylan, who is a Dragon Quest expert, had this to say. Prince of Canuck is basically just all around a bad party member. Doesn't have good stats and never gets any real useful gear to help him. He's not even a glass cannon, his late game offensive spells are horrifically weak and not even a good support, since he doesn't have full heal, a true lost cause. Remakes of the game have improved him a bit in some regards, but while the Princess of Moonbrook is the usual support magic user, Prince of Canuck is literally just the hero, but worse. And here's what's so funny about the whole thing. The Prince of Canuck is so infamously known for being a deadweight that fans of the series usually tend to portray him in a coffin, from fan art, cosplays, and even memes. And if you thought it couldn't get any worse, even the developers themselves are aware of his reputation. Here's official art of the prince in a coffin. And in a Japan-exclusive Dragon Quest mobile game, there's a zombie enemy that wears the clothes of the Prince of Canuck and is aptly named Canuck Corpse. It's so damn funny! So if one day you ever feel down and useless, just remember that at least you're not the Prince of Canuck. And the last useless party member to receive an honorable mention is Kimahri from Final Fantasy X. The only reason I didn't give him a full entry is because I already put a Final Fantasy rep with Penelo. But Kimahri is also such a great example that he had to be mentioned. He's a blue mage, therefore he's doomed from the start. His unique ability of being able to use enemy skills isn't really that good because he can only use one per overdrive bar. And in terms of combat, he's virtually useless since he cannot fulfill a single role. He's a jack of all trades, but because of that, he will always be second to someone else. Need damage? Use Tidus or Auron. Healing? Yuna is right there. Expose elemental weaknesses? That's what Lulu is for. The craziest part is, even the devs accounted for nobody caring enough about Kimahri, and because of that, during his only boss battle in which you're forced to use him, the other boss stats are scaled in relation to Kimahri. So in case you didn't use him at all, it is still possible to win this battle and continue to ignore Kimahri as you were doing up to this point. But alright, it's time we move on to the worst party member, or in this case, the worst party I've ever seen in a JRPG. Look, Atlus is no stranger to making some of the worst, unbearable, and or irrelevant characters ever made. You have Barry from Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Mary and Rise from Persona 4, the entire cast of Shin Megami Tensei 5, god, they're so lame! Not you, Aogami, you're actually cool. But see, most of the time, these characters are not playable, so you don't necessarily have to deal with them all the time. Except for Rise. However, I think it is a special brand of bad when you dislike an overall party in a JRPG. That's never happened to me before. Except for these characters. Here's a group that needs no introduction. The Phantom Thieves. You guys know how popular Persona 5 is. Even if you somehow still haven't played the game yet, you have definitely seen this group of characters before. Well, I played this game back when it released many years ago, and I can tell you, I used to be a massive fanboy for it. I remember I even went as far as to get the limited special edition cause I used to love Persona 5 that much. But as time went on, my thoughts on this game gradually dropped. From the pacing, the story, the messages, and especially the characters. I realized they weren't as good as I thought they were. I'm not saying every single character in this game is awful by any means, but I'm gonna tell you, the idea for this video originally was to talk about the worst parties in JRPGs. The very first group to come to mind were the Phantom Thieves. However, after that, I couldn't come up with one more cast of characters I can say I really dislike, and trust me, I tried really hard. At most, I came up with the investigation team from Persona 4, but I don't like to repeat franchises for these sort of videos. I even asked people on social media for help, but nothing really convinced me. So why? What exactly makes the Phantom Thieves, in my eyes, the worst party in the JRPG genre? For me, their main issue is that I really can't feel any true connection between them. As individual characters, they're fine for the most part, but when it comes to them being a group, they each feel so disconnected from one another, like, what are the dynamics between them? I mean, yeah, these characters are here because they were treated unfairly by society, but how do they relate to one another? For example, can I tell you if Makoto and Yusuke had a fun interaction? No, not really. What sort of dynamic do Haru and Futaba share? I cannot answer that. See, if I go back to a game I really don't like Persona 4, even there I can tell you more about the investigation team even though I dislike most of them. Chie and Yukiko are best friends who always look out for one another. Kanji and Naoto have a sorta confusing relationship, but they still get along very well. And Yosuke has the whole thing of calling you a partner. Hell, even if I go further back with Persona 3, I can still tell you what each member of SEES brings to the table. Junpei and Yukari bounce off each other all the time. Mitsuru develops a cool friendship with Yukari, and alongside Akihiko, they have a lot of mutual respect for one another. Some might bring up, oh, Ken is the worst, I hate Ken! I can understand if you don't like him in terms of gameplay, but as a character he does make a lot of sense and still has dynamics with Akihiko, with Shinji, and even Koromaru! Just let that sink in. Even the dog who can't speak has a dynamic with someone else. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember if the Phantom Thieves had anything like that. Oh, wait, there's two I do remember! What about Morgana being unbearably down for Ann the whole game? There's also Morgana being a piece of shit at Ryuji all the time. Actually, scratch that. Everyone being a horrible person towards Ryuji because, haha, that's funny, right? True friendship right there. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty more interactions between the Phantom Thieves that I'm forgetting. But that's the thing, if I forgot them, then not a single one of them stuck with me in a meaningful way. And as individual characters, I don't really hate them, aside from Morgana, but I also don't love them either. And that is because they also suffer from this constant problem Persona 5 has, where it builds up something interesting but then drops the ball for no reason at all, or for a full comedy. Ann is perhaps the most in-depth character in the game. Her backstory is pretty good and her struggles are honestly very interesting, shining the most during the Kamoshida arc. But after that section of the game is done, she's reduced to nothing more than fanservice, while the game completely ignores what she went through. Yusuke is a character I can't tell you much about. Yeah, his situation with Madarame was pretty messed up, but his personality never stuck with me and quite frankly, I always forget he existed in the game. Makoto is a character with a struggle I could quite relate to, but after Kaneshiro, she just becomes a plank of wood. She was so damn boring that her social link didn't even focus on her. It was all about a side character who didn't even have a portrait at all. Futaba is one I can give more of a pass. I actually really like her arc, it was good and emotional. And even after that, Futaba still matters in the story. I only wish her personality outside of that was more than just, dude, no, you don't get it! She's a gamer girl! A girl who games! She plays games, dude! Ain't that crazy? Then you have Haru, which, as all of you know, joins way too late in the game, has barely any screen time, and rarely gets the spotlight at all. And then you have Morgana, which... No. Let me tell you a fun story. When I asked my friends on the channel's Discord about who was the worst JRPG party member of all time, do you know what they answered frame 1? Yeah, no, I cannot blame anyone for despising Morgana. From his constant flirting with Ann, his obnoxious abuse of Ryuji, how he single-handedly is responsible for the worst section in the entire game, how he takes away what was supposed to be Haru's screen time, and overall he's just so unlikable. You may have seen the memes before, but again, they exist for a reason. Fuck Morgana. Literally the only Phantom Thief I can tell you I really like is Ryuji. He's a bro true and true, who always stands up for his friends. Only to be treated like a punching bag by those same people. Now listen, there's a difference between friendly banter and abuse, and Ryuji suffers the latter the whole game. Taking mine, I'm saying all of this from my experience with base Persona 5. I don't know if they fix any of these issues in Royale, Strikers, or even Tactica. But the Phantom Thieves were so lame to me that I've never been motivated to try the expansion or any of the spin-offs with them. And if you need extra games to flesh out your cast from the main game, then yeah, no wonder they made it to this video. I will admit, there's also some burnout at play here. After seeing the Phantom Thieves everywhere for so many years, I've grown really tired of them, especially when they are so mid. Even more so when there are many more JRPG parties who are exponentially better, are much more interesting, and deserve more praise than them.
Now you have to tell me, in your personal opinion, who are the worst JRPG party members of all time? They could be awful in gameplay, in story, or as characters themselves. Or all of them, that also applies too. But still, let me know in the comments, and while you're at it, thank you so much for your time, I really hope you enjoyed the video, and if you could support the channel, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, or Patreon, that will help me so much. Have a wonderful day, and take care! I'll see you next time!